My name is Sylvia Hurst, and I was 28 years old when I learned how quietly someone can reduce you to a backup plan without ever raising their voice. At the time, I was working as a graphic designer in a mid-sized city, the kind where ambition exists but rarely screams. I had been with Chris Whitmore for 3 years. 3 years of shared routines, late dinners, half-finished shows, and the quiet assumption that we were building towards something real. I believed in consistency. I believed in showing up. And I believed wrongly that loyalty meant the same thing to both of us. Chris liked to call me steady. He said it like it was a compliment. I wore it proudly. When his career stalled, I stayed up late helping him polish presentations. When he doubted himself, I reminded him who he was. I postponed freelance opportunities so I could be available when he needed support. I thought partnership meant sacrifice, and I gave without counting. What I didn't see, at least not right away, was how slowly he began pulling away. It started about 6 months before the end. Chris became distant in a way that didn't come with fights or accusations. He was still there physically, but mentally somewhere else. His phone never left his hand. He laughed at messages he didn't share. When I asked casually, he brushed it off. Just old friends. Just noise. Just me, overthinking again. Her name was Olivia Grant, his ex-girlfriend from college, the one he always described as a phase when I first asked years ago. She had reappeared quietly, likes on his posts, inside jokes, in comments, nostalgic emojis that felt too intimate for someone from the past. When I mentioned it, he smiled indulgently, like I was a child afraid of shadows. "You're being paranoid, Sylvia," he said. "There's nothing there." But there was. I felt it in my chest before I ever saw it on his screen. The messages weren't explicit at first. They didn't need to be. They were emotional. Olivia talking about how adventurous her life was now. Chris responding with complaints about routine, about comfort, about how things had started to feel predictable. Predictable. That word lodged itself in my head like a splinter. One night, I stayed up until nearly 2 in the morning redesigning a pitch deck for him. He was stressed about a meeting the next day, pacing the living room while I worked. I made coffee, listened to him rehearse, encouraged him when he doubted himself. The next day, he nailed it and got a promotion. To celebrate, I suggested a weekend getaway. Nothing extravagant, just us. He declined. Too busy. Maybe next month. That weekend, he met Olivia for drinks. I didn't know that then. I only knew that he came home glowing, distracted, and oddly absent. He posted vague quotes on social media afterward. Things about not settling, about choosing passion over comfort. I told myself it was stress. I told myself love meant patience. So I doubled down. I cooked more, planned dates, tried harder to be enough for a standard he never explained. Then the comparisons began. "Olivia's starting her own business," he said one night casually. "It's inspiring." I nodded, asked questions, smiled, all while wondering why inspiration suddenly sounded like disappointment when he looked at me. The imbalance grew unbearable. I was pouring everything into us, while he was halfway out the door, testing another life with someone else's approval. I didn't confront him dramatically. That wasn't my nature. I waited, hoping it would pass. It didn't. One evening, we sat on the couch with takeout growing cold on the coffee table. Chris was on his phone, smiling at something I wasn't meant to see. I asked what was funny. He sighed, as if the question itself annoyed him. "Sylvia, we need to talk." My heart started racing before he even looked at me. He set his phone down but didn't meet my eyes. "You're great. You really are. But you'll always be my second choice." I stared at him, unsure I'd heard correctly. "Second choice to who I asked." "Olivia," he said flatly. "She understands me. She challenges me. With you, it's safe, comfortable. But I need more than that." The words landed with surgical precision. No yelling, no apology, just casual honesty, like he was discussing dinner plans. "So all this time," I said slowly, "I've been a placeholder." He shrugged. "You're loyal. That counts for something." That was the moment I realized loyalty meant nothing to someone who never intended to choose you first. I didn't scream, I didn't beg, I just nodded. "Okay," I said quietly. And in that silence, everything we were ended. The next morning, the apartment felt different. Not empty, foreign. Like I was standing in a place that had already decided it didn't belong to me anymore. Chris came home that evening earlier than usual, carrying an air of quiet certainty that told me this conversation had already happened in his head. His bag was half packed. Not rushed, not emotional, planned. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, the same couch where we'd watched shows argued about, nothing talked about someday. Now it felt like neutral ground for a transaction. I'm moving out next week, he said calmly. I'm going to stay with Olivia. There it was, no build-up, no hesitation. This isn't sudden, he added quickly, like he was managing a PR crisis instead of dismantling 3 years of my life. I've been unhappy for months. I looked at him, really looked. You never said a word. He scoffed, because you'd overreact. That stung more than the betrayal. The idea that my emotions were an inconvenience he had to manage around. It's not that you did anything wrong, he continued. I just need more. Olivia's ambitious. She pushes me. You're content. Content, like it was a flaw. I liked my life, I said quietly, because it included you. He smiled sadly like I'd confirmed his point. See, that's what I mean. I want adventure. I want intensity, not Netflix nights and stability. Stability. The thing he leaned on when his world wobbled. The thing that paid bills, soothed panic attacks, and held him together when his confidence cracked. So I'm boring, I said, not accusing. Clarifying. He laughed. Actually laughed. No, you're safe. Reliable. But safe isn't enough anymore. I felt something harden in my chest, not anger. Clarity. You used me, I said evenly, emotionally, practically, and now you're calling it growth. He shifted uncomfortable for the first time. That's not fair. What's not fair, I replied, is pretending this is about evolution instead of betrayal. He crossed his arms. I didn't cheat. You emotionally left months ago, I said. You just waited until you had somewhere else to land. That landed. His jaw tightened. I appreciate everything you did for me, he said, tone suddenly patronizing. And I hope you find someone who values loyalty. Someone simpler. Simpler. I nodded slowly. I'll handle the lease transfer. Take what you need. He blinked, clearly thrown off. You're not going to fight for us. I met his eyes calm and steady. Why would I fight for someone who already chose someone else? That was when irritation crept in. You're making this easy. For you, I said, not for me. He left that night with a duffel bag and a self-satisfied sense of closure. I sat alone long after the door clicked shut, replaying everything. Every sacrifice reframed as weakness. Every ounce of loyalty turned into something disposable. I didn't cry right away, I just felt hollow. The days that followed blurred together. I slept badly, ate little. Friends checked in, but I kept answers short. We broke up. No details. I couldn't explain the casual cruelty of being labeled second place without sounding broken. I boxed his remaining things methodically, shipped them to his new address, changed the locks, unfollowed him online though I didn't block him yet. Part of me wanted to see. Another part wanted control. The worst part wasn't losing him. It was realizing how easily he'd reduced everything I gave into something replaceable. But I didn't chase. I didn't plead. I walked away without screaming, and that was the beginning of something he never saw coming. The quiet after someone leaves can feel accusatory, like the walls are asking what you did wrong. For weeks, that silence followed me everywhere. In the mornings when I woke up alone. At night, when the apartment lights felt too bright for one person. In the gaps where his presence used to be. I let myself feel it, but I didn't live in it. I started with small things, practical things. I deleted old photos, rearranged furniture, gave away the mugs that reminded me too much of shared routines. It wasn't dramatic. It was intentional. Each change felt like reclaiming territory. Work became my anchor. I took on freelance projects I'd pushed aside for him. Late nights returned, but this time they were mine. I landed a promotion that came with better pay and flexibility, moved into a smaller place across town, less history, more light. I signed up for a gym membership I'd always postponed, not to prove anything, just to feel strong again. Therapy came in the form of journaling, long walks, and honest reflection. I stopped asking why I wasn't enough and started asking why I'd accepted being second. Friends mentioned Chris occasionally. How happy he looked, how adventurous his new life seemed. Trips, smiling photos, quotes about finally choosing himself. I didn't engage, didn't ask questions. I was too busy building something quieter but sturdier. 8 months passed before the first cracks in his picture-perfect upgrade reached me. Mutual friends grew vague, hesitant. Have you heard from Chris lately, they'd ask. I hadn't, and I didn't want to. Eventually, the truth surfaced without effort. His relationship with Olivia wasn't what it looked like. Her ambition was inconsistent. Her promises grand but hollow. He'd fronted money for her ideas, covered rent, absorbed emotional whiplash when she disappeared for days, and then one day she vanished for good, blocked him everywhere, moved states without a word. The irony was sharp. He'd chased passion and found instability. His job suffered. Distractions turned into missed his deadlines. Layoffs came. Friends who once praised his growth began pulling away. The same traits he'd mocked in me, loyalty, consistency, were suddenly missing from his life. I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel vindictive joy. I just felt balanced. Life for me was steady. Better than steady. I traveled solo, met new people, dated casually without attaching my worth to outcomes. The betrayal that once gutted me now felt like a distant lesson, not a wound. Then, 9 months after the breakup, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. "Hey, Sylvia, it's Chris. I've been thinking about us." I stared at the screen, heart calm. The universe had started collecting its debt. I didn't answer his message right away. Not because I was angry, not because I was tempted, but because I finally understood something that used to terrify me. I didn't owe him immediacy anymore. His urgency was no longer my responsibility. The next day I replied with 2 words. "What's up?" The response came instantly, like he'd been staring at his phone, waiting for permission to exist again. "I messed up," he wrote. "Everything fell apart. Olivia wasn't who I thought she was. She used me, left me with nothing. I've never felt this lost." Lost, the same word he'd used to describe himself before I held his life together. He asked to meet, just coffee, just to talk. He framed it like closure, but every line was soaked in need. I kept my distance, answering slowly, briefly, without warmth or cruelty. That's when his sister got involved. She called from a number I didn't recognize, voice sharp, with misplaced authority. "Sylvia, you need to talk to him. He's a mess. You walking away like that destroyed him." I laughed softly, more surprised than amused. He walked away first. "Well, he knows that now," she snapped. "You were the stable one. He took you for granted. People make mistakes." "Some mistakes," I said calmly, "are choices." She accused me of being petty, of enjoying his downfall, of lacking compassion. The irony was almost elegant. After that, Chris's messages escalated. "I was wrong. You were always real. You're the only one who ever truly had my back." Still no apology, just realization dressed as regret. A week later, he cornered me at a cafe near my office. I was working headphones in when he slid into the chair across from me. He looked thinner, tired, unraveled. "Sylvia, please," he said, voice cracking. "I can't do this alone." I closed my laptop and met his eyes. "You're not alone. You just don't like the consequences." He talked about being broke, about couch surfing, about how hard it was to rebuild without support. He reminded me how loyal I'd been, how steady. "I need that again," he said quietly. "I need you." There it was, the truth without decoration. "You made me your second choice," I said evenly. "Now you're asking to be mine." His face hardened. "Don't throw that in my face. You made it permanent when you said it." He accused me of being heartless, of abandoning him when he needed me most, of changing. "I did change," I replied. "I learned." He left angry dignity frayed. The texts that followed were bitter, defensive, laced with entitlement. Friends tried to intervene, to soften me, to explain him. But the power had already shifted. He was unraveling. I was solid. And he hated that more than losing me. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Desperation doesn't fade quietly. It looks for new entrances. When Chris realized guilt wouldn't work, he tried familiarity. When that failed, he tried pressure. And when pressure collapsed, he reached for humiliation. The messages kept coming. Long ones, rambling ones, some filled with nostalgia screenshots of old photos, reminders of trips we took, jokes only we understood. Others were sharp, accusing me of changing, of becoming cold, of enjoying his pain. "You're not like this," he wrote one night. "You were always the good one. The good one. The safe one. The one who absorbs damage quietly." I didn't respond. Then mutual friends started reaching out. Carefully at first, then insistently. "He's really changed," one said. "He just needs a chance to prove it," another added. What they meant was that he needed stability again, a landing pad, a safety net. I had already been that and nearly disappeared in the process. A week later, he ambushed me again. This time at an event downtown, one of those work mixers where people pretend networking is casual. I was mid-conversation when I felt his presence heavy and familiar. "Sylvia," he said, stepping too close, "we need to talk." I stepped back. "No, we don't." His composure cracked in front of strangers. "Please, I'll do anything." I was stupid. I chose wrong. You were my real partner. I looked at him, really looked. The man who once called me predictable now looked unmoored. The man who wanted passion now wanted peace. "You don't miss me," I said quietly. "You miss what I gave you." He flinched. "I can be better," he insisted. "I'll choose you first this time. Second. Anything." Just don't shut me out. That was when it became clear. He didn't want redemption. He wanted relief. I'm not your second chance, I said, and I will never be your backup again. His face twisted. You'll regret this. I didn't argue. I just walked away. That night I blocked his number, his sister's, anyone who thought my boundaries were negotiable. The noise stopped abruptly like a switch flipped. For the first time since the breakup, I slept without tension in my chest. I didn't know then that there would be one final encounter. One public, one unforgettable. The invitation came a year after the breakup. A mutual friend's wedding. Someone we'd both known long enough that skipping would have raised questions. I hesitated for exactly 5 seconds before RSVPing yes. Not out of defiance, out of certainty. I wasn't hiding anymore. By then, my life looked nothing like the one Chris had walked away from. I'd settled into my career in a way that felt earned, not sacrificed. My work was respected. My schedule was mine. I'd learned how to enjoy my own company without filling the silence with self-doubt. And a few months earlier, I'd started seeing someone new, not a whirlwind, not a distraction, just steady in the way that didn't cost me myself. Ethan Brooks arrived with me that evening. Calm, observant, kind without needing applause. He knew about Chris, not the details, just enough to understand the history without stepping into it. He squeezed my hand once before we walked in. No claiming, no performance. The venue buzzed with laughter and champagne. I relaxed into the evening, easily surprised by how little anxiety lingered, until I saw Chris. He stood near the bar. Suit slightly rumpled, eyes darting. Older somehow. Not in years and where. When his gaze landed on me, it was like watching someone realize a door they expected to be open had been permanently sealed. He approached during cocktail hour, timing it so Ethan was distracted in conversation. Sylvia, he said softly, urgently. Can we talk, please? I exhaled slowly. You already know the answer. I had to see you, he insisted. Texts weren't working. I needed you to hear this from me. I looked at him not with anger, not even disappointment, just distance. I'm sorry, he said quickly. For everything. I was wrong. I destroyed the best thing I ever had. Olivia was nothing. A mistake. I see that now. Ethan returned to my side, sensing the shift. Chris noticed him immediately. Who's this? He asked, tension sharpening his voice. Someone I'm with, I replied evenly. Jealousy flickered across his face, raw and unfiltered. So this is a rebound. Ethan didn't react, just waited. No, I said, this is my life. Chris's voice cracked. Please, I'll do anything. I'll be whatever you need. First choice. Second. Anything. Just don't shut me out. Nearby conversations quieted. People pretended not to listen while listening anyway. His desperation had an audience now. I paused not to be dramatic, but to be honest. Chris, I said calmly, you're not even a thought in my day anymore. His face fell. That betrayal, I continued, forced me to build something better. Peace, stability, self-respect. You're not part of that story. You're not even a chapter. You're a footnote. Tears welled in his eyes. But I love you. We had something I corrected, past tense. Silence stretched, heavy, final. I turned to Ethan. He offered his arm without a word, without triumph, just presence. As we walked away, whispers followed, not about me, but about him. The fall from confidence to pleading had been complete. Later that night, my phone buzzed once. You'll never find better than me. I blocked the number. On the drive home, the city lights blurred softly past the window. Ethan glanced over. You okay? I smiled. A real one. I'm free. And for the first